All right, if I can have your attention, thank y'all for being here. Ms. Palmer, thank you for taking time to come in and have a chance to meet us and us to meet you. The kind of schedule today is you're here from 10 to, we'll see how long that takes, and I think we've got set up for you to take a tour 11:30, I think. Oh, no, 11 o'clock with one of our officers, Jay Bonilla. So thank you, Chief Brubaker, for working that out for us. So kind of the process we'll go through is that we did similar before. We got city council on this side, utility board on this side. So what I'm gonna do is ask each, we'll go from a city council member, ask a couple of questions, then we'll go over to the utility board. Chairman Campbell and I will go last. So just kind of so you know how the format is. And then at the end, if you have questions for us, we'll allow you to ask those as well. So we're gonna get started. I don't know that we did any kind of pledge of allegiance or anything like that last time, so we're just gonna go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna start with Vice Mayor Dixon. So Vice Mayor Dixon, if you would go ahead and ask your couple of questions, and then we'll go over to Vice Chairman Farmer after that.
Okay. Gary, if you would, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, okay, that's an easy one. Grew up in Ohio, left after high school, went in the Marines, did 4 years active duty in the Marine Corps. Got out of the police department after that. Wanted to go through the academy while I was in active duty, so I went right on to the police department. Was in Prince William County, Virginia, police department for about a year and a half, 2 years. Had some family issues I had to take care of back up north, so left there. Wound up going to school full time up in Ohio. Finished up my master's degree there. And while I was there, kind of got into planning. I had a roommate who was in urban planning, and at that point I had also gone back in the Marines and the reserves. Was pushing around the idea of going back on active duty as an officer. Actually went through OCS, wound up tearing up my shoulder, and a little more to that story, but I wound up not going to OCS because of that injury. And came back, went to grad school, started working with doing GIS, computer mapping, while I was in grad school, getting my master's in public administration. Wound up working for an urban planning firm in Detroit, Michigan, doing large scale, small scale planning, urban planning, community design, master plans. Had about maybe 30 client communities during that 3.5 years, and one of those client communities was Garden City, Michigan. Got along really well with the city manager there, the police chief, and the executive team there, so I wanted to offer me the job to be the community development director, which I took, and spent about 5 years there. My philosophy has always been I wanted to work my way up the chain in whatever organization I was in, so kind of always had my eye set on the city manager seat, and was kind of pushing towards that direction. That's what my emphasis was in public administration, my master's degree. So I saw the opportunity. I was actually shooting for Texas, and Texas is one of those states where if you're not from there, it's hard to get in. So I found a job, Farragut, Tennessee, had an assistant town manager position open, and wound up taking that job and worked for the town of Farragut for 11 years. Great experience there. And I really cut my teeth in local government and just really delved into the management side of things while I was there. And during that time, I saw the opportunity with the city of Roswell, in Roswell, Georgia, Atlanta, if you're not familiar with that city. Very, very much larger city than Farragut. Opportunity for me to kind of test my chops, see how I do at the top seed, and I really enjoyed my time there. Spent about 3.5 years there with Roswell. Kind of wound up at the tail end with COVID, and during that evolution, that really burned me out with local government, just because we had a lot of protests going on, just a lot of dynamics with all of that happening, and I felt it was time, and there were some political issues going on at the same time. So for me, there's clear roles and responsibilities between the city manager and the city council. Those roles kind of got blurred, in my opinion, during that time. So it was, and they had some turnover going on with the city council. So it was time for me to go. I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I was a little burnt out, so I wanted to leave in there and working for an executive recruiting firm. always felt like I was really good at building teams, so I wanted to try that, and wound up loving that job. It just the company I worked for, Coffin Associates, they were a West Coast firm. I was on the East Coast. My pitch to them was, hey, let me try to get you a little book of business out here on the East Coast and start doing executive recruiting out here. And executive recruiting for means city managers, police chiefs, fire chiefs. So I did that for a little over a year, and it just wasn't enough work for me. So wanted to leave that. I really didn't plan on going back into local government. All of this time, I was also in the reserves early on, and then I started hiking the Appalachian Trail back in 2020. So during one of those trips, I was out there and kind of just thought about where I wanted to go, what direction I wanted to go in, if I wanted to just stay out of local government and go back in. Still have a lot of energy, still have a lot of passion for local government, the service side of things. There's a lot of things about city government in 2024 I don't enjoy, but there are a lot of things about city government I do enjoy, which is helping people, working in small dynamic teams, pushing initiatives, problem solving, working with good city councils, and seeing the fruits of your labor in the city you're working in. So I've taken a job in the city of Montgomery, been there it'll be coming up on 2 years in January. Great city, love that city, love the people there. If you're not familiar with the city of Montgomery, it's a small city, but it's in the Houston metro area and right next to Conroe, which is one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. So we're seeing a lot of development going on there. So I think my planning background was attracted to them and my management experience and doing a lot of work there, a lot of good work. But my heart's in East Tennessee and I want to get back to East Tennessee. My in-laws are here. My wife is from here. I love it here. I mean, what's better in East Tennessee? In my opinion, nothing. So wanted to try Texas. I love the culture there, but I need to be in the mountains. So this is the place for me. And it's where I'm at. That's why I'm here. Not just for the job, but there's a professional side and the personal side. I've been tracking Loudon for quite a while. I know about this area, about the region. Can't remember the manager was here when I worked in this area, but Loudon's always been kind of attractive to me just because of the rural nature of it, the culture of the city, and the history. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
Okay. You have another question?
I do. I see where you have family and extended family lives in the area, in the Maryland place, I think.
Yes, sir.
If you were hired by the city and utilities, would you be interested in moving to Loudon, considering moving here and getting involved in different organizations within our community?
A priority for me has always been living in the city I work in because you have to have some stake in the game. I think you have to be a part of the community. Also, with that, I want to get property. So Loudon has a lot of available property that is still relatively affordable, in my opinion. So I would want it. That would be my priority. Would be if I was going to work for Loudon, I would want to live in Loudon. I haven't gone down that road yet. But the short answer to your question is yes, I want to live here.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll switch over to utility side. Director Farmer, Vice Chair, you want
Thank you,
to
sir.
ask your question?
Yes, Gary, I've been examining your resume the past few weeks and looking at it very strong. And question I have is, first one is, where does safety fit into your philosophy in the workplace?
Safety's got to be paramount in every operational aspect of the city. You need to protect your employees, you need to protect your residents. Reading through your strategic plan, I saw that safety was part of the conversation. It didn't really make the priority this much, which I guess is good in a sense, that safety wasn't that big of an issue, but yeah, you've got to set a standard. If there is an issue with safety that's going on, I think one of the first things I would do is an analysis of that issue and work with the board and work with the city teams and the utility board teams and try to figure out what the issue was. If there are OSHA issues that are going on, that's got to be addressed immediately. So yeah, safety's got to be paramount in everything we do.
Could I elaborate just a little more? It's not the
Sure,
second
yeah,
question, but
yeah.
on that point, I understood what you said a moment ago about an issue, but what about just on the normal day of ensuring that we have emphasis placed on safety?
Well, I
What
think it
kind of
comes
plan
down-
would you have for that?
I'm sorry?
what kind of plan would you have for that?
Well, I think would be, you're looking at your teams, looking at the training, making sure that they're meeting a standard, identifying what the best practices of that industry are, with regard to safety and making sure that we're adhering to that. Getting to know your teams, of course, would be a priority. And, yeah, I think that'd be my first thing.
Okay. Second question, have along the strategic planning, I think you mentioned a moment ago. We are certainly at the point of implementing a strategic plan here on a complete basis. What would be some of your objectives of how that plan should be implemented fully across the board?
How
would we implement that strategic plan?
Well, you guys, I like the plan that you did, and I think it puts in objectives in there. You need to work with your teams, and that's, you gotta get people together and on the same page. That includes the board, that includes your utility teams, it includes city members, stakeholders, and making sure that we're all tracking on the same page. Identifying priorities, identifying objectives, and identifying the resources that are gonna help you get to those objectives. Resources are always gonna be an issue. So those I'm sure are strained, and you're not gonna be able to tackle everything on there that you're wanting to look for. So, you know, even within your priorities, you need to go in and prioritize even further, and identify what you need to tackle first. So that's how I would start that process.
Okay, all right, well, just for transparency, Councilmember Cardwell is also a LUB board member as well, so he may get double doses here. So, we'll start with your city council questions first.
Okay. Thanks for coming down and talking with us today. In your organizational values, you talk about professional development and mentorship. Can you give us an example of, in your travels, in your time, of how you develop people, how you held people accountable, and some of your success stories in doing that?
I'll give you an example from Roswell. So when I got to Roswell, and a lot of cities are kind of stuck with the same performance evaluations. I've been in several cities where it's kind of the same form, blanket form you go through and you check the boxes. Are you meeting these standards? Are you not? Some of the standards don't apply to that job, some do. So for me, I kind of put that to the side, and we developed contracts where you basically, I say contracts, and I use that as a loose term, you're working with your department heads to identify what priorities they're gonna work on throughout that year, what needs they have to make sure that they are gonna be able to get to those priorities, what resources they need to be able to get to those priorities. And you are kind of developing a contract between myself as the city manager and the employee, and we're agreeing on this, and we're kind of going through that evolution of developing a strategy on how we're gonna get to where we need to go. All of that is gonna be based on whatever priorities the council comes up with, whatever priorities the board comes up with, whatever priorities my office would come up with, and that's what we're gonna track, and you need to, of course, apply performance measures to make sure they're tracking. So you'd wanna tie that to any kind of merit increase, or even with or without money. If they're not meeting the standards or meeting those measures that you both agreed upon, then there's an issue there that you need to address. So when I talk about mentorship, I'm talking about getting to know your people on an interpersonal level. I'm talking about getting to know your people on a professional level and agreeing on what direction we're gonna go in. So if I'm working with my city engineer or my police chief or fire chief, we're gonna look at what priorities they're gonna address that year. We're gonna document it. We're both gonna agree on what they need. We're both gonna agree on what training they need to get there, and then we're gonna start moving in that direction. So mentorship is both formal and informal, in my opinion. You have to get to know your teams, but you also have to set a professional standard and hold people to that standard.
Okay. On the utility side, we've got a lot of capital projects going on with electrical, water, and you're a planner. So tell us about your experience and your success in taking a plan from a vision to fruition, and how you brought together resources and people to make that happen?
We've got a plan going on right now with Montgomery where it's not really a plan, but as soon as I got there, I identified an issue that, they desperately needed to recodify their entire zoning ordinance. So they've got a lot of development that's coming east from Conroe and just kind of overrunning the city at this point. We are currently in the tail end of an evolution where we're doing a recodification of the ordinance, working with a consulting firm, going through that whole process of identifying what development standards we want to put in place to make sure that the city is getting the development that it wants and not just sitting back and hoping that good development comes. Hope is not a method. You have to plan, you have to identify, and you have to push those initiatives. With that, we're also doing identifying a future land use plan. So when they have rezonings that come up, when they have development that comes in, they've got a basis to make a decision. They never had that before. We've also are doing a thoroughfare plan, open space plan. So again, they can identify what they want to get in their community and make sure that the developers that are coming in are adhering to that. So I think that's a good example from the planning side. But my focus, I did planning early in my career, and then I went to the management side. So when I think about plans, I think about strategic planning. So the strategic planning I've done in Farragut, the strategic planning we've done in Roswell, and also doing the strategic planning for the city of Montgomery. Those are the plans that I think that you really need to do some high level thinking, and that's also with the board, with the city council, with all the stakeholders, and identify from a community basis, from a community standpoint, on what the community wants and pushing towards those initiatives. There has to be a formal process. I don't know if that answered your question. And I know I kind of dovetailed a little bit on that.
That's fine. Okay.
Okay,
No, thank you.
all right, Director McCatherine?
It's good to have you here, Mr. Palmer.
Thanks, sir.
From the utility side, do you look at yourself as the type of person who would be an administrator, hands-on, or would you depend on your department heads and have them report to you issues, good or bad? I mean, do you let them pretty much do their own job, or do you stay on top of it?
So my management philosophy is you hire good people, you make sure they're trained to a standard, you give them the resources they need, and then you back off and let them do their job. And be that resource if they need it. But I in no way have any interest in getting involved in someone else's industry. I'm not gonna tell the police chief what he needs to do. I'm not gonna tell public safety what they're gonna do. I'm not gonna tell a utility manager how to do their job. But we're gonna have conversations about what the expectations are, and then I'm gonna let that person go and do their job. And yes, I would expect them to come to me with issues, and that's the kind of relationship I would wanna build with my executive team, is that, hey, I'm a resource for you. Let me block so you can do your job. Let me give you the resources so you can do your job, and you tell me what resources you need to do your job, and then I let you go and do it. With that, there's also gonna be issues that maybe I'm gonna wanna be more involved in, if there's politically sensitive issues, big community issues I think that could be a landmine. I'm gonna wanna be more involved in that, just so I've got a little bit better pulse on that, but micromanagement is not my business.
I'm good.
Good with that? Okay. We'll come back if you have a follow-up. You can
Okay.
stick around. Okay, Councilmember Newman?
You've kind of touched on it a couple times. One question concerned, if you followed, we've offered this position to someone else out of town in the past, and they weren't prepared to make that move. If offered the position, are you and your family willing, able, prepared to make the move?
I don't wanna get too deep into my personal life, just because we're in a public meeting.
Absolutely, yeah.
Broadcast, so I'll just say yes.
Good deal. So job-wise, when it comes to your management staff, how do you go about developing a culture of accountability?
Well, it goes back to the mentorship.
Right.
Having those conversations, documenting, what the standard is, making sure people are trained to a standard, adhering to best practices in local government, whatever industry that is, and getting to know your folks on an interpersonal level. Small team, that's the great thing about small teams. And it wasn't a problem I had in Roswell, but, you know, your span of control over anything is gonna be maybe 4 or 5 people. And when you have one person that's in charge of everything, no one's in charge of anything. So you gotta get to know your team, and with a small team, small city environment, you can really get to know your people on an interpersonal level. That's what I like about it.
Gotcha. Now, what does maybe a 3, 6, and 12-month, you know, first days on the job look like to you? What's that?
I think first 30 days, you know, of course, I'm gonna wanna get, did you say third?
Yeah, 3, 6, and 12 months,
Okay,
30
months.
days, whatever.
So I wanna come in, I wanna get to know my team, I would wanna get to know everybody that's sitting at this table up here. I'd wanna have some sort of priority setting session with you all to sit down. I know you just did a strategic plan, the board did, I think the city did one a couple years ago. Go back into that and identify what your current priorities are. Things change, so you need to have that conversation. A quick priority setting session, getting to know everybody on an interpersonal level and what your expectations are of me, what my expectations are of you all, and identifying roles and responsibilities for both sides. So I think that would be the first thing I would wanna do. Of course, I'd wanna learn the area, get to know the stakeholders, I hate saying stakeholders, the people in your community, downtown businesses, everyday folks that may or may not interact with City Hall. I wanna get to know the community that I am working for. So that would be my first 3 months, I guess. Kind of sitting back, not saying a whole lot, but just listening, listening to my executive team, listening to my employees, finding out what the issues are, handling issues if I can handle them at that time. If not, then, you know, something we can track later on. I'm thinking 6 months, we're knee deep in pushing priorities. Whatever priorities are identified, we're going after it. First year, I guess we're rolling first year. It's not gonna take me long to get going, so.
Good deal. And then, you know, kind of coming from some larger metros, what's your idea and or plan of growth? Because, you know, I think Loudon's probably a similar community to Montgomery. It looks like we're probably a little larger, but we have met, you know, we've got metro, you know, Nashville pushing, or Knoxville pushing our way. What's your kind of idea and agenda of growth?
Well, I know you guys have I think it's a county growth plan. I don't think you guys have a comprehensive plan, do you? Is there an adopted comprehensive plan? You know, first step is kind of going back to what I talked about that we're doing right now with Montgomery, is taking a look at your ordinance, taking a look at your zoning code, taking a look at, I don't know what kind of economic development initiatives you guys have going on. I had a hard time finding some of that stuff, so having those conversations, what kind of community do you wanna be? And then putting those things in place, ordinances in place to make sure that whoever comes this way is gonna have to adhere to those ordinances, and you're gonna get the development that you want. If you want affordable housing, then you need to look at your zoning code, and make sure that you've got zones that are gonna promote affordable housing. Kind of with the same with the board, the utility board has to look at economic development initiatives to see what we can do together to attract businesses. If you want big industry coming here, you need to tune your ordinances and your city to accept that stuff and to be willing to take it on. Do you have the infrastructure to handle what's coming? Those are all issues that need to be addressed. Going back to that first 90 days, those are the conversations I'm gonna wanna have. Is taking a look at all those things and making sure that we're tuned for what's coming, because it's coming.
Good deal. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Director Watson?
Okay, it's good to have you here today.
Thanks, sir.
So you've explained your management style of you hire good people and you let them manage and whatnot, and I can appreciate that. But with you've had a little bit of utility experience in Roswell, but what would you do, because in order to hire good people and to hold them accountable, what would you do to I guess to gain, enhance what, your utility knowledge, what would you do to enhance that or flatten that curve, or straighten out the curve that, you have on the utility experience?
So are you asking what I would do to make sure that I know what I'm talking about when I'm?
You hit the nail on the
When
head.
I'm managing, it's about, again, identifying the best practices in that industry. I think, and I thought about this a little bit because it's, you guys have this kind of hybrid position where you have the city manager and also, the general manager of the utility board. And you need to have a little bit of understanding on, you need to have a deep understanding on both sides. And I can tell you, I don't have a deep understanding of utilities, but I'm hoping that the people you have in place can school me on that, and if not, I would try to find training where I can get that. But for the most part, I will say that, my role is not gonna be to go in there and tell that manager how to do his job. My goal is gonna be to identify what the best practices are, making sure that, again, we're adhering to a standard. It's gonna take some time to get up to speed on all the utilities you guys have, but, again, for me, it's about building good teams, putting the right people in the right places, and, making sure that they are adhering to best practices. I don't know if that answers your question, but,
Yeah, I'm just looking at that, on the utility side, there's a lot of moving parts. We've got a lot of capital projects going on. And so it's very important to me that, like the, water treatment plant, that's an $80 million project. If we go and we save $2 million on that, I'm not talking about backing it up to 78. I'm talking about watching what we're doing and keeping it from going to 82. And, we've got to have, we need someone that can look at that, manage that, and have those conversations with, the folks that are involved with this project. We've got good folks on our team, but as the leader of the organization, we would need to know how you would hold those folks accountable for what they're telling you, what you would do to, gain the knowledge to know what to ask them.
yeah, I suppose if we had the resources, I would wanna bring in some expertise if I needed it to help out. If we didn't have that capacity in-house. But at the end of the day, I'm a manager. I think you guys are gonna have a hard time finding somebody who's gonna be a good city manager, but also know everything about the utility boards.
Yes.
My expertise is building and running small teams. I've been doing it since I was 19 years old. So for me, again, it goes back to making sure the right people in the right spots and that we're having conversations about things. You guys know these businesses, and I'm hoping that we have that in-house expertise that can help me understand. In my cover letter, I'm sure I talked about humility, and that's what I'm talking about. You have to know when to step back.
Sure.
And say, hey, I understand I'm the manager, but you may be the expert in this. I need you to tell me what we need to be doing right now. And if that person can't tell me what we need to be doing, I'll find somebody who's an expert in that industry, and they can tell me what we need to do. And we'll do that. So for me, it's comes down to problem solving and building redundancy in your operations and building capacity for the work.
Sure. Now, another question that I have is in the places that you've been before, what experience do you have in grant writing?
Cities love grants. That's always a question. I've done grant writing, and I did a lot of it when I was a planner. I managed the community development block grant for several client communities and for the city of Garden City for several years. I would say in my experience, grant writing it's not really an art. It's finding the people. Again, there's folks out there who you can hire to write grants for you that do it much better than anybody you can find in-house. And it depends on what kind of grants you're talking about. If you're talking about grants that are coming through like federal grants that are coming down through the TPO and for road projects and for infrastructure projects, I'm good about managing those processes. But you have to have those things in place before you even put an application. If you guys are familiar with the MPO process where you have to get on that transportation improvement plan, if you're talking about transportation, you gotta back into that years and years ahead of time. So you have to have certain things in place, and I'm good about getting those things in place. But as far as applying for grants or managing grants, I mean, that would be a team type effort, in my opinion. I've got experience in it, but it's not something that I do on a consistent basis.
Thank you. I got one more.
Okay, sure.
If I can ask it. So, tell us of, through your different experiences, you've had, you went into different positions, different places where I'm sure that, things were not just like they needed, like did not fit your management style. If you come across folks like that, whenever you move into a position, what do you do to either get those folks up to speed or into your program?
So are you saying if I have an executive team that maybe doesn't align with my management philosophy?
How does that fit into your management style and how do you deal with situations such as that?
You have to have conversations, and they've gotta be consistent conversations. And you need to lead by example. People, everybody's watching. So as a city leader, if you're setting the tone for how you're gonna operate, they're gonna see what that standard is, because you're holding yourself to that standard, so that's wrong. And then again, it's about checking your ego at the door and having honest conversation with people. Hey, this is what's going on, this is what we need to be doing, what do you think we need to be doing if I'm talking to a manager? And making sure that we're both on the same page. At the end of the day, I've never had to pull that card, but at the end of the day, I'm the city manager. So it's gotta be what I need to have happen. But again, I've never had to have that conversation. So for me, it's you gotta get to know your team, and you gotta build a culture of I guess compliance and meeting a standard.
Thank you. I appreciate you answering my questions.
Thanks.
Okay, Chairman Campbell?
Let me follow up on one he just asked. And it was buy-in. And, I noticed in Roswell that they didn't have a formal, strategic plan, but you started one down there. Now, how did you get them to buy into that plan?
When I got there, I was hired by one council, and 3 months later inherited another council, so it was a challenge. Because in my interview, we talked a lot about strategic planning, but then when I got there, everything changed, and I needed to start that whole conversation over again. Getting their buy-in, it was, for me, it was, again, coming back to, they did not get along. So it came down to getting them all together out of the city and having an honest conversation about what kind of city they wanted to be. And we hired a consulting firm to come in, and Roswell had a lot of resources, so I had the latitude to bring in whoever I needed. I mean, we had a public engagement consulting firm come in, we had a strategic planning consulting firm come in, and it was a 2-year evolution because of COVID. So it was a tough process, but getting them to the table, and quite honestly, we went out and got some drinks and we had some honest conversations, and they started getting along and they started understanding that, hey, we need to be all pointed in the same direction. So that's really how I got the buy-in, is just kind of explaining to them, hey, if you got, what do you want to be? What direction do you want to go in? And you guys need to figure it out, because you're the policymakers. I'm steering the ship, but you're setting the course. So that was really the kind of conversation we had, and for the most part, during that evolution, it worked. But I have left since then, so I don't know how they're tracking on that strategic plan now. I mean, I've heard some things, but I just don't know. But that's how we got the buy-in, it's just conversation.
Did they implement it before you left?
They started implementing some of the strategic planning objectives before I left, yes. But they had another turnover, because it took so long, so they had a new mayor come in, and from what I understand, there was some they reshuffled the priorities after the new council got in. But I don't think that had anything to do with the plan. It was a solid plan, and it was a solid process.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one thing the one way that I think we sold it overall was it was heavily community-based. And we, short of going to people's houses and dragging them down to City Hall and getting them involved in the process, we engaged everybody in that city. So they really didn't have to do any work, the city council. It's kind of like, they had the community coming to them saying, well, here's the priorities we want. So it was a very streamlined and very comprehensive and easy process for them. So, worked out.
Now, in your cover letter, you described a dual role of city and utility manager as having nuisances. What do you mean by that?
Nuisances.
Nuisances.
Nuance.
I
Or did I misread that?
Nuance.
Excuse me?
Nuances.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misread that. I was going big deep into that. Yeah.
might be a nuisance to
I'm sorry on that. If one word would describe your management style, one word, what would it be and why?
Humility. Humble. I think at the end of the day, I'll be the first one to admit, I don't know everything. So my management style has got to be one where I'm able to get people together at a table and have conversations with those folks without the ego, without thinking that I know everything, and understanding that we are a team. So for me, management style's gotta be from a place of humility.
Are you a good listener?
Very good listener, I think so.
Would your wife agree?
I don't know about that.
Do you see a problem with being the utility manager and the city manager at the same time?
I'll tell you, it's attractive to me, just for, when I worked in Farragut, that was probably one of the biggest frustrations I had. We had no control over our utilities. So anytime we needed to do a capital project, it was always an issue. Complaints are a lot of complaints are generated by utility districts that go in and do work, and they're not letting the residents or the citizens or the town, when I worked in Farragut, we didn't know what they were doing. So, and it comes back to economic development and capital planning. You need to have, if you have control over utility districts and utilities and city operations, to me, that's a great marriage for a manager. Because that means I've got a hand in, or our teams have a hand in just about everything, and you can have some deep collaboration going on with those two teams without having the different entities that maybe aren't talking to each other, or maybe just at arm's reach. Maybe they've got different initiatives than the city's got. So for me, it's very attractive. I see it's a good thing.
You said it's a real plus.
Yeah, absolutely. The only downside to me would be back to the span of control. If I'm managing 5 department heads and I'm managing 5 other department heads, it's tough for one person to manage all that, but it's just something you've got to deal with. I've always been curious on why you guys never hired, and that's one of my questions, why you guys never hired a separate manager, or maybe kind of separated those duties, maybe an assistant city manager that handled the utility boards or the city manager. Just for span of control reasons, I just was curious about that. But I think having them combined is very beneficial to the city.
You don't consider yourself a workaholic?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I love my off time.
Yeah. Well, I noticed you had written that you felt like that anybody should have some outside interest.
Oh, yeah. And you gotta have fun at work.
Yeah.
In 2024 with city government, it's with the chaos that's going on right now, and I know you guys don't go to Houston and see what I'm talking about, but it's hard. Local government is hard nowadays. It used to not be like this with social media, with a lot of the stuff that's going on right now. It's a tough job. So you have to find joy in your work. You have to celebrate your successes. You have to celebrate the people you work with. And you have to find those little things to have fun with while still doing the job.
Yeah. Well, I could go on and on, but I won't. So thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
sir.
you so much.
We'll come back to you if you have one. Just a couple that I have that hadn't already been asked. One has been in this interim position for the past 12 months. One important thing that I guess I took for granted, maybe some of the board members and council members do as well, is the preparation of the agendas. You know, sometimes we just show up and it's done, nobody really thinks about who makes that agenda, you know? Well, I found out real quick, there's a lot of work goes into preparing that agenda so that we have an efficient workshop and board meeting as well, council meeting. So I guess the question I was is, how would you manage the process of preparing the agendas from two different boards at the same time, which incorporates input from several department heads? They've all gotta get information to you, and you gotta, you know, go through that, make sure you understand it and those kind of things. And there's external partners as well that place stuff on their agendas. What would be your approach to ensure that it's accurate and it's timely, and, you know, we have smooth coordination and collaboration with, because that really makes our board meetings and council meetings more effective when we have an efficient, orderly agenda.
Couple things, I have weekly staff meetings, everywhere I've worked, I've always had weekly staff meetings, sometimes we'll do it after, I'll schedule them after the council meetings, just talk about what was talked about the night before, what we need to work on for the next council meeting. You need to back in with understanding what state laws you have to comply with, because you have public hearings that you may have to post a certain time out, so those have to take priority if you have to meet those deadlines. Planning requirements also have deadlines, subdivision regulations have deadlines, so you need to understand that. But getting your team together and making sure that we're finding out what we need to put on that next agenda. Getting with our partner agencies, if they have stuff that needs to run an agenda. It's about getting with them and making sure that they're meeting deadlines. I've never worked in a city that did not have this issue where agendas, and it's been a constant complaint from councils, and I understand that. It's, you get your packets.
Yeah.
Maybe Friday, and you have a council meeting on Monday, and you got a 200-page packet you have to read through before Monday, and 9 times out of 10, no one's gonna read through all that stuff. So you get into a meeting, and your meeting, which in my mind should take an hour, is 3 and 4 hours. And that problem trickles.
Well, you also had issues where a department head or someone may say, oh, I forgot to put this on there. Hey, we've already got it sent out, sorry. You know, you have those issues sometimes as well.
Sure. And you're gonna have those challenges, and you're gonna have hiccups, but you have to, again, it comes back to conversations. I like team meetings, same with the board. I would have meetings with the board personnel, making sure that we're tracking properly. If there's gonna be an issue or we're not gonna make an agenda, and it's something that the council's looking for, it would be a conversation that I would have with you as the mayor and probably the rest of the council, saying, hey, this is what's going on and here's what's happening. If there's an issue on an agenda that I think you all maybe need more information on, or maybe a little bit of a personal touch, I'll call you, say, hey, we've got this agenda item coming up, just wanna run through it with you really quick and make sure you don't have any questions. What are your questions? But you just have to set up a process and making sure that everybody's meeting those deadlines.
So you're aware that the issues do come up with agendas and,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
My entire career is
Right.
there's been agenda issues.
I did notice on your resume that you have the AICP certification.
Yes, sir.
That was probably a difficult test to take, I'm sure.
It was,
Have you kept that certification up to date? Is
I
it
have.
current?
that's correct.
All right, so we'll go back around. Does Tim, you have another question?
Do not.
John, you good? Eric, you good? Chairman Campbell, you have another question?
I got one.
Okay.
In your tenure at Montgomery and Roswell, did you have any opportunities to set utility rates?
We're doing that right now in Montgomery. We just did a rate study, so we haven't set the rates yet, but we're in that process.
How did you do your rate study?
We farm it out.
Okay.
We have an engineering firm. We
You do it with cost of service and things like that?
Capital, cost of service.
Okay. That present a problem to you?
Doesn't present a problem to me, no.
Okay. All right.
The residents
Okay.
sometimes.
Vice Chairman Farmer, you have another question?
No.
Okay. Carter?
No.
Mark?
I got one more. Having to work between two different boards. So, how would you, what is your form of communication that you would, you know, how would you keep up with both boards?
It's a big push.
Yeah, you know, you've got folks on both sides that, you know, what would you be your,
I mean, I'm your employee, so I would defer to you. If you want me to call you on certain issues, I would call you. If you like text, I like text. If you want email, my preference would be to send out an email to everybody and kind of recap some things. And I do that now. What I'll go through is I'll do a list, every other week. I'll go through the list of what initiatives are going on, where we're at, how we're tracking, what agenda items are coming up, maybe some red ball issues that may be around the corner or a possible political landmine. If it's a sensitive issue, of course, I'm gonna give you a call and we're gonna talk about that. But, for the most part, it's whatever communication style the board and council wants, I'll do it.
Okay. Gary, I'd like to give you the opportunity to ask us any questions.
I've got a few.
Yeah, sure.
So running through your strategic plan for the city, I've got lack of performance measures, reliance on city funding for personnel, maybe this is for the board, no, it's for the city. Reliance on city, outdated growth plan, outdated CIP, affordable housing. So if you guys had to identify maybe your two priorities, current priorities that are going on, or current challenges that you're having as a city right now, what would that be?
I think, I'll start, I think some of that's been addressed a little bit, it's just the growth we're experiencing, I think, and how to manage that. I mean, everybody talks about smart growth and that kind of thing. I mean, I think that's important, you know, that we do it in a smart way as far as the infrastructure can handle it and those kind of things. And I agree, I think your codes and zoning and all that needs to be in place and act on what we want, where we want it. All that is really important. And I think that takes a lot of priority. And then, as mentioned, I think from one of the directors, there's a lot of utility projects in the works and on the books that's planned. So that's all got to fit into that strategic plan as well. So I'll let anyone else on the council jump in.
I agree with the mayor that managing growth, and you hit on it about lack of an updated master plan, land use plan, comprehensive plan, the thoroughfare plan, all those plans that you rattled off earlier. I was just doing check that yes, we need to do that. And then,
Has the city ever done that before?
Not that I'm aware of.
how about not comprehensively? There might have been pieces of it, but never all brought together and vetted with the public. And then from there, updating the ordinance to support that vision, and then putting where I think we also, a priority is then putting in the process into place so our employees can execute that vision.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else from the utility side?
No, I think you guys pretty well hit on it. We're playing catch up, you know, with utilities, and got behind a few years ago and started the growth going and found out, hey, we can't handle it, but we're getting there. So that's where we are.
I mean, aging infrastructure is something that we're really dealing with, and I think we're just reacting to it at this point. I don't know if a board member wants to follow up on that.
one of the things about the aging infrastructure is that is what is plaguing the United States in every city that is out there. You know, infrastructure, roads, and I feel like that we've actually started kind of ahead of the curve, because I know we're behind the curve, but we're actually ahead of what a lot of cities are doing, because we've actually sat down and we've got it mapped out to where we have a plan and we've started the project. And so I feel like that we've got that started, and that's just, you know, going to be something that, you know, that we're going to look for our new manager to take and pick up and you know, carry out that plan. But we do have struggles as far as with the growth and things that are coming. So we've got to have someone that is going to look out there and help us create a plan for 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. that's what we're lacking is a long-term plan that we've not established yet. We've talked about it, but we haven't established that, and that's why it's gonna be so important to, have someone that's going to be hands-on, willing to jump in and get in here with our department heads and, with their knowledge and with the knowledge that the person we hire for this job to be able to map that out for us.
Has the board ever gone through any kind of projections on capacity for the utilities, future capacity?
We've talked about some of that with the expansion that we've got up here with, where we're doing the water plant expansion. And, we're more than doubling the capacity with that plant, but, we've got, we're, along with this infrastructure project where we're replacing a lot of the aging lines, we're putting in larger lines as we do that, to try to do that, to carry more water, to be able to, move more sewage. But, there's just, there's gonna be a whole lot more of this.
Well, due to those capacity issues, we've gotta build more substations. We got substations on the book, we're going forward, we gotta build, we gotta update our, lift stations and pump stations, and just because of the growth, so all those are big projects that's coming forward.
But it goes back to your point about having the ability to coordinate city and utility operations, to where that's part of the reason why we need that master plan for the city. So then the utility planners can go back and plan what future capacity may need to be based on where we want to grow. And that's the part that we've been lacking.
Thank you.
Not only that, though, also I think it's in the measuring and monitoring the KPIs across the board, because we have a good financial system that we can monitor and audit. I don't think we really have that detailed. Now, the strategic plan will be a big part of that, I'm sure, but we need to measure and monitor the little things as well, see how they're performing. That could be the weak areas that we need to work on.
Have to track performance, that's another thing I was gonna ask you about, is performance measures. Has the city ever gone through an evolution where you identify and apply performance measures to the objectives in your strategic plan? I didn't see it in there, I was just curious.
No,
We talked about it, but we haven't implemented it.
Okay. I've got a ton of budget questions, but I don't wanna talk about it here, I'll talk to Melissa about it, so just curious about some things.
That's who we'd refer you to.
Who does the city planning currently?
The city planning, it's a joint effort, with our city engineer, Michael Hogan, our codes department, Travis Gray, and then we have a consultant that we use, Jim Spencer. That's the team we've put together. We currently have a planner position posted at this point. And the way we come about that, it's kind of baptism by fire. We used to be under the county's interlocal agreement for planning. We used their planner, and we contributed to that interlocal agreement. And then 3 years ago or so, they decided we weren't going to do that anymore. So we just got it dumped in our lap too. So it's just kind of been all hands on deck with it, but it's kind of been a joint effort from those. And I think we've done a really good job with it, but I think it's some things we need some help with as well.
And you have to forgive me, I didn't get too deep into looking at this. You have a city planning commission?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is Bars Wagner, is that the consulting firm you guys use?
No, we use East Tennessee Development District for planning services.
Economic development, do you guys have any economic development professionals that are
We do.
working with you?
Yeah, we have an EDA director, Jack Qualls
Oh, great.
is the EDA director, QUALLS.
Is that, when you say EDA, is that Economic Development Agency?
Yes.
Is that a corporation that is separate from the city?
Yes.
Funded separate, do they have taxing authority?
No, they do not. No, we share that with Loudon City, Lenore City, and Loudon County
Okay.
in that interlocal agreement we have with them.
Budget. Saw a lot of election signs on my way in. How many seats are open?
2.
Okay.
We have one open seat where we had a council member pass away, back in April. So that maybe it's June, I can't remember exactly, but anyway, that seat is open. And so there'll be 2 seats filled in November.
How would you guys define the personality of the city, if you had to say, what's the personality, the culture of the city?
I mean, it's where I've always lived, so it's just, I think it's a very friendly, engaging community. They love the town, they love each other. I mean, it's a neighborly, neighborhood. I think that they just all pitch in and work together, that we have, just like in your own family, you have disagreements from time to time, but you work through those. You're still family. So I think it's a lot of people won't, just depends on who you ask. Some want growth, some don't, but I think we can manage that and we can keep the small town atmosphere and also have growth in the areas that we can sustain it, you know. So I'll let someone else.
Proud.
Proud?
Proud.
Yeah, I think everybody loves living here, and they love the environment we're in, and it's a great place to live, work, and play, and raise your family. I think
Beautiful community.
everybody appreciates that. I'll let some people on the board, someone else wants to jump in.
We're blessed, let me put it that way. We're blessed to have this city. You know, I think about it often, many times. You know, I'm getting up to be the older people in this city. I've been here all my life. It's the most wonderful place in the world to raise your children, send them to school, send them to church. Got God-fearing people everywhere you look in this city. And I felt like over the years, you know, it's one of the safest and crime-free places they are that I know of. So, and I think people are beginning to see that, you know, really. And, but again, we've been blessed by the Lord to be here.
Yeah, it's a great area.
You said it a while ago, it's a community. We live in, you know, we live in a community here that folks care about one another. Folks want to contribute to what's going on. They want to be part of what's going on. And so it's just a good place to be.
And just one last one, I guess, and I'm gonna try to phrase this properly, but, how do you see your role as mayor and council? What is your day-to-day interaction with the city? I guess maybe, how do you see your role as council versus my role if I were the city manager?
I mean, I think, I'll just speak for my role. My role is to, whoever takes this position is to really engage with them, because like I said, I've been in here for 12 months, you know, really kind of do what I can to get them up to speed and share whatever.
What do you think, Mayor? What do you think about the 12 months? Is it different from what you thought it was gonna be?
Yeah, it's, but you know, like it's been said from numerous people up here, it's the team that, I mean, the team that's sitting back there, that's the ones that make it work. You know, I feel like a pawn sometimes. They're the ones who do all the work. They just, you know, I just depend on them. It wouldn't be possible without the staff and the skill and abilities and the professionalism they have. I mean, yes, it's been a grind. It's been a lot of work, but I think we've done very well with it, and it's just because of the staff. So my role will be very supportive of whoever's this position to make sure they get caught up to speed as much as I can get them there, and share whatever, because I mean, we're in the middle of, we've got grants going on, we've got a lot of stuff. I mean, nothing stopped. I don't think anybody's complained about services not being provided over the past year. I think we've tried our best to keep things going, and that's contributed to the staff that we have. So now I guess we can let council.
As either board, we have 3 functions, which is to provide vision of where we want the organization to go, provide you resources, and then provide statutory oversight. And then your job is to take our vision and translate it from the strategic to the tactical of what the employees do every day, and then synchronize those resources to make it happen.
Well said, thank you. I'll probably have some other questions. Like I said, I'll talk to Melissa about the budget stuff, but, gentlemen, I appreciate your time, and I really enjoy being here. I love this conversation and stuff, do it all day, and, I'm looking forward to getting out there and exploring.
Yes,
the
we will.
community.
We look forward to, I guess, Officer Bonilla's gonna take him around and, kind of give you the tour, and feel free to interact with the employees of each department and ask your questions and those kind of things, and I think you'll be treated very professionally, and I think you'll enjoy that part of the business as well.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you again for coming.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it.
Simplify.
We'll be in recess for 30 minutes.
Yes, sir.